A common mistake among people is that cancer is not a singularity. It's more than 200 categories of tumors. They might be categorized as cancers, but they don't behave in the same way.
I'm here with Andreas Charalambous, expert in cancer nursing. So we're going to learn a lot about cancer and how we treat the patients. Hello, brother. We're here in Cyprus, and this is his first podcast, so I'm excited.
Oh, fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
So what do you do exactly?
Well, thank you, first of all, Phidias, for the invitation to this podcast. As you said, this is my first one, so let's hope it goes really well. So what I do...
Or if it doesn't, it's not going to be a problem. We're going to see how it will turn out.
Also true, also true. So what I do is that I'm trained as a cancer nurse by background, and what I do here at the university, the Cyprus University of Technology, is that I teach oncology and palliative care, which are two distinct disciplines.
I don't know both of the words.
I will explain. So there are two distinct disciplines. Oncology, as the name suggests, is about cancer and how cancer affects people, how cancer needs to be treated, how treatments are delivered, and so on. And palliative care is a distinct discipline which deals more with the supportive care of those diagnosed and living with cancer and other terminal diseases. So these two fields usually go hand in hand. And for example, a new concept that has been introduced nowadays is integrative care, where you do not distinguish between the two, you just have the two together in practice.
In practice. So how does that translate in practice?
So it can translate in many different ways. The easiest ways for our audience to understand is that usually palliative care used to be introduced later after the onset of the disease. With a new integrative approach, oncology and palliative care should start together from the day of diagnosis.
So we diagnose one person with cancer. So what's the steps from there? So he's diagnosed from cancer. Now what we do in the 2023? So what's the steps?
So as you said, the first, the most important step I would say is diagnosis, is delivering the bad news to the patient. But it is more important for the patient as well as the family or the significant others to understand what that diagnosis means for the patient. Like you said, we're living in the 21st century, so decision-making is not only on the side of the medical professionals. So decision-making is made in a shared environment. So together with the patient, we decide what the course of the treatment might be and how this treatment will look like in real life. And then once every detail is presented to the patient and the family.
But let's take a step back. So you deliver the news to the patient.
Okay.
You have cancer. That's
science, by the way. Delivering bad news is science. You
do it?
You have to be trained to do it well.
This is your job, actually, right?
It's part of the job.
So how you do it well? How you deliver such bad news to a person?
Well, I can tell you there's no easy way to do it. But
you are not very happy, I assume, about the situation.
No, it's not. And you have to bear in mind that not all people are behaving as one. So they have their distinct characteristics, and you have to move forward according to those.
Reverse engineer their character.
But for example, there's the spike. It's called the spike technique. It's about preparing the environment and starting from what for example, the patient and the family know first, and then slowly delivering
The family
news.
knows first.
No. When you're delivering that kind of news, it needs to be simultaneously together. It is preferable not to have the patient on its own, because it's a devastating situation, and always the patient needs some kind of support other than the healthcare professional.
Did you deliver a lot of this news in your life?
I did, and you have to bear in mind that
Wow.
bad news
Wow.
is not just the diagnosis. Bad news can be, for example, someone who is being treated for cancer, and then you get the labs back, and the cancer is not responding to treatment. That's also an aspect of delivering bad news.
Oh, so you mean that this can be ongoing? It's not just you have cancer.
Yeah.
Oh, the treatment failed. This failed.
I'm just saying
so you
that
are
it
in the last stage now. It did metastasis.
Metastasis.
Yes. So it's so it can be ongoing.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning
bad
that,
news.
that for the audience to understand that it can happen more than once, and it's not like you said, it's not a pleasant thing to do.
But me, because I'm happy about all the stuff, I would say that with excitement, but probably I'm a bad person to say that. So do you have something in mind when you go and you're saying, oh shit, now I have to be a bit more calm, a bit more... Do you do a special preparation for mentally before you personally, before you give the bad news? Do you, sometimes maybe you don't, you go to deliver the news and you see him on a bus stage and you don't say it that time. Maybe you tell him again. Like,
Well, I think you have grasped the idea of delivering bad news very well. It's not a script. You can go by the script, but from my point of view, is good preparation, and it is rare to deliver bad news to somebody that you just met. It's not how it goes. So, for example, knowing the patient, knowing the family helps you do that. So you have to also know all the details about what you are going or you're about to deliver, and you have to adjust your language to it. And you don't want to go there and speak a language that the other person won't understand. So good preparation makes good delivering bad news. I mean, good in the sense of a process, not the actual.
Did you had any reactions that were weird? Any reactions that people like were shocked? They were like...
Well, I can speak with you with evidence. Once the human brain receives that kind of information, which is devastating, it shuts down. So it does not receive any new information. It differs from person to person for how long that shutting down state, let's call it like that, lasts. But it is very common when you deliver that kind of news that people don't realize what they are being told. And that is one of the good practices, is that you have to repeat it. But it is quite rare somebody to take it in from the first time.
So describe me some reactions of people. Like, did you ongoing, like people, what's the worst that happened to you, when, how the perception of that person was?
Well, I can't recall any extreme reaction, but anger can be present, and anger most of the times can be targeted to the healthcare professional.
They are angry with you sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
Most of the time, sometimes.
Well, like I said, it differs. Some people get angry with themselves because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in the years before the event. So it varies. But most of them are in denial.
Denial. Yes, that's an interesting word for that. But do you try to say the news in the most pessimistic way possible? Like you have 2 months to live, and it's like you don't, or you always try to give some hope that, but it can be treated. Like, do you deliver the news with a spark of optimism, or is probably better to deliver more negative news, so then they are happier with some new results that will come?
That's a very interesting question, because patient healthcare professional relationships should be based on mutual trust. You cannot build that kind of trust by not delivering the truth as it is. On the other hand, you have to find the balance. You do not want to underestimate or overestimate a situation. You have to be truthful with what you have at hand at the moment of delivery.
So you're not trying, you just try to lay down the data, not sugarcoat it, not under, just as it is.
Yes, precisely. And nothing, and you have to remember, Phidias, nothing will happen at the moment of delivering the bad news or the news someone is not expecting. It will take time, and that's why you need this trusting relationship with the family and the patient, and you have to maintain that.
And so how, okay, let's say they have cancer, they understood it, and they start, some people, they don't want to do treatment, some people, they refuse to come again in the hospital, they decide, okay, I have cancer. Is that how people, like, or most of them, they want to be treated and have a chemotherapy? Or
yeah, I will say that most people choose to be treated. Well, it can be chemotherapy.
We know percentage, kind of, or it doesn't need to be precise?
I don't think I have ever seen a percentage on that specific condition, but I would say it's the vast majority. But you have to bear in mind again that the perceptions or the expectations you have from cancer and the experience of being diagnosed with cancer draws from your previous experiences, from other people who might have cancer.
Oh, interesting.
For example, you are sitting with your gang somewhere, and there's somebody who experienced cancer in some...
Or you saw in a movie.
Or in a movie, and then you have all those terrible experiences or
because you don't know actually what is cancer and what does it mean. Like, you never had the experience, you never knew, so you just think that is bad. You don't know it.
Of course.
It's and then you don't know the taste of the chocolate until you taste it.
So you are basically experiencing cancer through the bodies of others, but that's not the ideal way to experience this situation. So
because everyone is different.
It's different, and it doesn't mean that when you will be treated with even with the same chemotherapy, you will experience the same side effects or to the same extent. So for you, the experience of cancer might be the worst experience you had. For other person, it could be something manageable.
Or the best experience that they had because it led them to become happier.
Treated. Well, cancer can change you in many ways.
So you saw a big change in people through this process?
I saw patients... First of all, I don't like the word patients. I saw people becoming better. I saw people becoming worse. But it can change you because it's a life-changing experience. No matter how you approach it, it will change your life.
Can you we go a step behind to the how we get cancer in the first place?
Well, if we knew that, then we would be claiming the Nobel Prize for sure.
So we don't know how cancer emerged.
We don't. We don't really know what a normal cell in your body one day becomes a cancerous one. and it starts multiplying, dividing in an uncontrolled way, resulting in creating a tumor, which is cancer. So the exact mechanism by which a normal cell becomes a cancer cell is not known. But we do know that there are specific things or what we call external factors or internal factors that can influence that process. For example, ionizing radiation. I mean, the sun, for example, it can create tumors, melanomas on your skin. So for sure, we know that creates cancer, but the actual process is not known.
And because it's not known, we don't know how to reverse it and cure it. Because do we have to know where something is coming from and how it emerged to be able to treat it, or is not necessary?
Of course we do. Because let's take, for example, the treatments we have nowadays. They're trying to treat something that it's forgiven, it's already manifested in the body. So these treatments, they do not, they could prevent new cancers being developed, but in an ideal situation, once you know the process by which these cells change, you can stop the process, so you can stop cancer. But we don't know that.
How close we are in solve the recent years? Like, do you have any innovations that are optimistic about solving the cancer, about CRISPR editing and all these new things that they are in the science?
I would say that there's always new breakthroughs in the science of cancer. I mean, you mentioned CRISPR, but also immunotherapy was a big change.
Immunotherapy meaning?
Immunotherapy is drugs, I can explain it in late language. So what's the defense in our bodies? It's the immune system. Mm-hmm. So these drugs, basically what they do is they remove the brakes of the immune system of the body, increasing its capacity to tackle cancer. And it works. But it can't work forever because it's not natural to have your immune system working in that high intensity for longer periods of time. So we have seen immunotherapy to be very efficient when it comes to non-treatable cancers. For example, advanced breast cancer and so on, and melanomas, which you had an expectation, a lifetime expectation of months, and now you can have a few years, which is, okay, by comparison, it's very efficient. But it's not like I said, it's not a radical treatment of cancer.
Well, say something probably stupid. It's not going to be a surprise for anyone.
We can edit it later on. No worries.
So I did recently 30 days with no food. Okay. And some people, I didn't eat food, only water for 30 days. And I heard because I listened some podcasts, a lot of podcasts about the science and how this. So I think this can be a way to treat cancer, to not eat food for 30 days. Because I lost 15 kilos in the process. So it will attack cancer for sure. The cells will die.
Why?
Because I lost 15 kilos. So a lot of, and the body is trying to go and probably attack stuff.
Well, probably you help your body to get cancer because being 30 days without food, it means that you have reduced the capacity of your immune system to target diseases. Because being 30 days without food, it means that your body...
But decisions, I agree. So I felt like I was more susceptible and weak and all this stuff. But because cancer is then some cells in our body that they are become big, infecting other cells. So if my whole body is dying, basically, then the cancer will die with itself.
Well, that's your theory.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just saying something stupid. I said that in the beginning.
Yeah. It's not how it works. But if you die, everything that is in your body dies with it. That's for sure. But we cannot say that as starvation. Starvation, you want it to happen, will deprive cancer from receiving food.
Yes.
Because, for example, cancer cells are, they don't call them super cells for nothing. They have abilities that would surprise you. For example, when tumors formalize in the body, they can formalize to a specific extent, let's say a couple of centimeters in diameter. Then they cannot self-sustain their tumor, and they can die. They become hypoxic in their nucleus, and they will start dying. But then they have what they call VEGFs. I will explain what it is. They are factors that they release in the surroundings. So those factors create artificial blood vessels. So the tumor can receive food, oxygen from surrounding tissues. And that once it managed to do that, then the amount and the size of the tumor will never stop growing. And then it can release other factors, and then it can metastasize, as you mentioned earlier. So it's
interesting. You basically, I want you to go a bit more deep. Like, what's some ways that the cancer is dangerous and how it's evolving to the body, and when it's dangerous and when it can be treated, and when it can be a bit more deep on that. But I just want to say, you cannot say that my theory is so bad. We don't know. Science, this is what science is. Science might something stupid, something that we don't know for now. This is what's the current data we have that maybe is not helping, but maybe in the future they discover something that they say.
Why not? Yeah, nothing can be excluded. We respond to questions based on the science and the evidence we have today, and the evidence show that starvation, it's likely not to help.
So can you explain me how the cancer is evolving to the body and like what can happen in the body? You said that there is some stuff, it's a lot of things, like it can happen in skin cancer, brain cancer, like...
Well, a common mistake or a perception among people is that we use the word cancer, okay? But cancer is not a singularity.
Wow.
It's more than 200 discrete categories of tumors. So the examples you just mentioned about gliomas, for example, in the brain, or cancers in your skin, or cancers anywhere in the body, they might be categorized as cancers, but they're not in the same context. They don't behave in the same way. They don't have the same, let's say, metastatic patterns, and they don't have the same growing or aggressiveness patterns. So your question will take 1,000 podcasts to be answered. But if we want to help our audience understand, cancer which is considered we call it in situ from the Latin, in its place of birth. As quickly as possible as you diagnose cancer in that stage, then we can say definitively that it's curable.
Repeat. So if you detect cancer early enough, you say that it
most of it is curable.
Curable.
So the longer you wait for the diagnosis, and it's not your fault really, because you have your body, tumors can grow at any part of your body, basically.
And how long? A big tumor can take a week too. It probably needs more time.
Well,
right?
the progression rate from tumor to tumor differs. There are some aggressive ones which grow faster.
So as I understood, everything depends here. Everything.
Of course,
So
it's not black
like,
and white.
It's not cancer is like always this size of a ball, that is this. It's like thousands of things, and the combination it can be. So when someone says cancer, it can feel there's actually nothing because we detected it and
no, it doesn't say anything. You have cancer. I mean, okay, if they tell me to me, I say, well, that says nothing. I need to know the details, the specific, what kind, what type, where is it, and so on. And then we could go into more depth, because then you assess the type, the grade, the staging. I mean, is it in a single place? How big it is? Does it have lymph nodes affected? That it has metastases? And as we progress in staging, then the prognosis becomes worse as well.
Prognosis, what does that word means?
Prognosis is basically
prognosis. You identify.
You identify basically the percentage or the likelihood of surviving this.
How do we? How I was always curious. How this fucking doctor that's a joke. I'm not saying I'm not a good doctor. Comes and says you have 3 months. Why he's not saying 28 days? Why he's not saying 3 days? Why he's not saying 1 year? Like how he makes that assessment? So,
well, I'm sure I'm doing the podcast, so you are interested in my point of view. So
of course,
I would never use a specific timeline when it comes to diagnosis or even prognosis, because people tend to fall out from the rules. They can surprise you positively or negatively.
But there is rules, kind of rules of thumb that you saw. So you know basically this is a late stage. So I think 3 months.
You can calculate, but you can never share that with the patient. I mean, what's the point?
Because also I think you might make it can also be good to share or bad to share, because some people will say 3 months and then they become in their reality that they are going to be 3 months, and exactly 3 months they die because they thought that's
the deadline.
The deadline.
But you remember, Phidias,
because of placebo effect.
Yeah. Remember in the beginning we said we need a trusting relationship with the persons we have in front of us. And based on that trust, you have to assess the level and the depth of information that the person in front of you can handle.
Okay.
And there's things in terms of it's called it is called personal fluctuation. In Greek it's prosopikia dyakimancy, increase. So and that differs from person to person. So I can give you a diagnosis based on the best algorithm there is, that you have 3 months, but you can still live 3 years.
Yes. And this is sometimes the church people, the religious people, they use this. I know a lot of, because my father is a priest, they're using it a lot. Oh, the doctors told to him that he's going to live for 3 months, and now it's 5 years later and he's still alive. So it's a miracle. So not saying that it's not a miracle, but a lot of times they use this as the ultimate like it's like you did something very very special to be able to exceed the doctor's deadline that they gave you.
Let me ask you a question. I know you are meant to give all the questions. What is a miracle?
What is a miracle? That's a good question. A miracle is something that people not believe it's possible to be done.
Okay, I can give you several explanations. Einstein said that a miracle is something that God doesn't want his signature on it. That's one point of view. And a miracle can simply be something that science cannot explain, but cannot exclude. So this is what miracles, and yeah, I mean, those...
So you agree that it's a miracle?
It can, yeah. I mean, we have to be extremely selfish to claim that we know everything or can control everything. So once you fall out of the norm and it cannot be explainable by science.
Do you see people turning into religion when they are diagnosed with cancer?
Yes, some do.
Vast majority of, or...
Well, it depends, I would say, where you are coming from in the beginning. I mean, if you have a religious background, I would say that it is much easier for you to devote yourself into that pathway. But I also saw people coming close to religion, and before that they had nothing to do it. And I would say that some of them were the exact opposite. And there are evidence in the literature, I mean, published studies saying that belief and hope can change things when it comes to living longer and to battling with the disease in a more efficient way.
I heard some example as well, like for belief, and I heard in one seminar that they went that one girl was diagnosed with cancer, like late stage cancer, and then she just locked herself in a room and she was watching comedy movies, and because she was laughing and she was happy and all this stuff, she had after like her tumor was shrinking and she became well, and she still lives until this age. So there is so many examples of this willpower affecting your whole biochemistry in a way.
Well, this is on the positive side. On the negative side,
it can damage it.
Yeah, you can see patients when they enter what we call the giving up mode, then you simply see them fading.
What does that mean in real life? Like how a person looks like when he gave up?
Well, for starters, they can start denying treatment. I would say that's one of the most common signs. Yeah, I don't. They say they don't care anymore, and you can see it also from a social perspective. They began to withdraw from their family, friends, and so on. So this indicates some kind of giving up or accepting the unavoidable.
Very interesting. This is like one of my good friends. His father has cancer now, and he's like 50, 60. His father. It's like how it affects not only the person that has the cancer, it affects all the people around. This is a big event. It's like it's a huge thing in people's life. And I don't think there is a person that never heard of a situation about another person that has cancer. is probably very unlikely to not hurt anyone that had cancer.
Well-
What's the statistic? Like 1 every 4 people they develop cancer at some point in their life.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about statistics. At the moment in Europe, the last statistics announced spoke about 2.7 million of new cancer cases and 1.3 deaths. And out of those, about 2,000 were young people. But
So it strikes a lot more the older than the young.
well, it depends on what types of cancers we are talking about. For example, the most prevalent cancers now are breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer. These are quite the normal ones. But the projections are what worry us today, because the projections say, for example, if today we don't do nothing, by 2035, there will be an increase in cancer cases by 34%.
And what we can do?
Well, there's many things that we can do.
Please.
And we are.
Please let us know.
For example, but before we go to that, I just want to make, because you made a question, but in a few years, and that's closer than we think, the question will not be, the question will be, what type of cancer do you have, and not whether you have cancer. So the statistics and the projections are quite scary at the moment. So what we do, for example, in Europe, we have the most ambitious plan or project running at the moment.
And you are not saying that because you are leading
No,
the organization in Europe.
Well, I
explain your position as well.
Well, I'm not saying that because I'm leading the European Cancer Organization, because this plan actually came out by the European Commission itself. So I am referring to the EU Beating Cancer Plan, which takes a very optimistic approach to tackling cancer in its totality. And what that means? It means that the initiatives and the actions are directed across the cancer continuum. And what does it mean? It means from prevention, from early diagnosis, from treatment, and survivorship. Because nowadays we do have more people surviving cancer than we did 10 or 20 years ago. So if we are being serious in tackling cancer, then we should target all the areas. Of course, we should invest much more in preventing cancer, because by prevention, we succeed much more impact in terms of not having people having to live with cancer or die by cancer. So the EU Beating Cancer Plan, as I said, is the flagship of the European Commission at the moment. It extends up all the way up to 2025, and it has various actions which target the areas that I have mentioned. And from our point of view as European Cancer Organization, we have advocated in the preparation of the plan, but following a strategic decision by the organization, we're now actively implementing the plan in practice.
So you are the one that is, the organization is the one that allocates the resources that the European...
The Commission is doing that. And the Commission, for the first time again, had in its disposal 4 billion euros to invest in this.
For $1 billion, what?
Euros to invest in the EU Beating Cancer Plan, its implementation.
Is it enough?
No, of course. It's of course it's not enough, but the idea is
And to be I look at across the whole Europe, which is a lot of countries.
yeah. I was just going to say that, Phidias, that for any EU beating cancer plan to be a successful one, you need the member states to be engaged in that vision. So,
Okay.
so I
you
mean,
need everyone on the same page. You mean
yeah,
to
I mean,
follow the stuff.
all 27 countries also need to be allocating funds on a national level, in addition to those 4 billion ones. So, for example, I can mention one project that our university here is leading. It is called the Transition Project. And it's part of this big idea of preparing the cancer workforce and health managers dealing with digital skills that will help them providing better care to people affected by cancer. So in that project, about 1.9 million is invested by the Commission, and another 400,000 is invested by the organizations participating in the project. And that's basically the member states. So this is how it works. It's a co-funding model, helping.
Between the countries and the European Union.
Yes, precisely.
I give you $1 trillion. How do you spend it?
1 trillion. Globally or just in Europe?
You have the whole world. If you want to go to space to spend it, you can go to space, no problem.
Well, and this is a personal view. I would spend in a balanced way, but heavily spending on the prevention and early diagnosis.
Of cancer or?
Of cancer, yes.
So how do you spend that money? So you
better screening methods, better information, and campaigning for the public.
How a campaign looks like for the public about cancer prevention? Well, so you want to have people in the media talking about this? Like how do you plan to educate the public about these things to prevent the thing?
Well, educating the public is a science. Drawing campaign is a science in itself. You cannot reach out to everybody only through one tool, a campaigning tool. So it needs to be on a complex multi-level approach. So you can use conventional media, television, but you can also use social media
to make ads,
to make awareness campaigns. You can have ads in your podcast, for example, so millions of people can view it. But it's a different.
Not yet millions of people watch the podcast, but hopefully in the future.
Well, I'm sure this podcast will help. Just teasing. So yeah, I mean, you have to be, you have to chart the target groups you are aiming for. And based on those target groups, then you take a step forward and design your campaign. And that's...
You do that a lot with the stuff? Do you...
We have to do it. And for example, you have the
What's the most effective ways of communicating with the public? Is it because in the previous podcast that I did, this girl, Andreas Charalambous told me that another way to educate the public, you can just put infrastructure in society for people to exercise more, like put more parks, put more walks, make something, lower the plans for gyms, make the healthy foods cheaper or whatever. Like, so you can put infrastructure in society to change society's behavior with that way. So I'm searching for other effective ways.
Those I would classify those as being on the action side. I mean, they're taking the campaign, let's say, results, and they translate it into actions, because those are indirect ways to affect the public, to have let's say a healthier lifestyle or healthier living. So yeah, I agree that those things can be impactful, and a lot of campaigning can happen in the mainstream of events. For example, you have a soccer game. You can actually do some of those campaignings in those settings. For example, in our conferences, even as healthcare professionals, we can still benefit from that. For example, you can organize a walk and collect money and donate to charity. But at the same time, you promote healthier lifestyle. So there's endless way you can do about and inform and try to change health behavior, which is quite tricky to do that, because all the time you need what we call falsifying factors. You cannot change a behavior with one action. You need to reinforce it all the way. It's like smoking cessation. You cannot come to a course, I educate you, I give you the patches, and I send you home. You will fall back to smoking in a week's time. You need to have a supportive network that supports you in your goal. And campaigns needs to be throughout time and from different angles to be efficient and successful, of course.
Okay, so you spent in campaigning to prevent cancer because you said that preventing is the best way to solve the problem, most effective way. But how do you spend the rest of the money in like detecting? Should we put regular checkups for people to go and like to make that as a habit? Like how do we?
Well, the next best thing is that, for example, you have the dilemma whether to get or not to get cancer, and then you have to get cancer. I mean, despite how many campaigns we do, as long as we don't know how cancer is being generated or created in our body, some will still be getting cancer and die of cancer. So what do we do next? We try to target asymptomatic people who do have cancer. So how do we do that? By having screening techniques and guidelines for more people or people who are at more risk compared to the normal population. And we do have the evidence to go about it. And going back to the EU Beating Cancer Plan, we do have regular screening recommendations. For example, we have for breast, colon cancer, but with the EU Beating Cancer Plan, we have new cancers being included in those guidelines. For example, now we have lung, we have prostate, and we do have gastric cancers. Why? Because we do have the scientific evidence that demonstrate clearly that if you screen populations at risk, you have a benefit, an impact in those who actually get cancer and those who benefit the most from cancer treatment.
And how is that screening works? Like you need to, how do you find those people to screen them? They need to come, you need to invite them.
For example, we do have in place national screening schemes. And so, for example, when you are a woman and you are at the age of 50, for example, but now the age limit is lower, then you get a letter in the mail, and the letter is asking you to set an appointment with your breast experts or your GP for a mastography, a mammography. And that is how it's done. And I can tell you about...
I didn't know that. And also it's very interesting that by screening people, we actually help the cancer. Whole cancer, because you get more data, you get more detection, you get more in the...
And why do we have those age limits? Because the evidence show that most cancer cases occurs within those age limits. And I could mention also that in some countries nowadays, we also have screening schemes which are self-managed. For example, you get a kit in your mail, and it's an HPV kit. It's human papilloma virus, which creates all those gynecological cancers. And you get the kit with specific instructions. You get the sample yourself, you put it back in the mail, and you...
So there is no point for young people like me to go and do screening for cancer. It's not going to be a big help.
No, really. I mean, based on the statistics, unless you have some kind of inherited factors, I mean, something is going through in your line of genes, then it doesn't make sense to...
So we're talking about at 60, it's the average age that people get cancer.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Younger?
And that age limit falls, it falls down minute by minute.
Really?
Younger people get, and don't forget, you can still get leukemias, which you get them in very young ages. So that's also cancer.
Leukemia, it's a cancer.
It's a type of cancer that forms in your bone marrow. So there is no, we cannot claim anymore that cancer is a disease of the elderly. We cannot claim it anymore, because young women of 40 or in their 30s, they can get breast cancer because where we are living now, it has much more external factors that contribute to the creating cancer, such as environmental pollution.
And the food that we eat, so unhealthy food, no enough exercise, no walking, just there on the screen. Yeah, so many.
So even if we do the best preventing campaign in the world, we cannot 100% control all those factors.
AI will solve everything. You think so?
I don't think so.
How do you think the future of AI with cancer?
I do think that, and I did write a recent paper about machine learning, AI, big data. I strongly believe that it can help to control the disease much better. Because, for example, AI can handle all those risk factors that I just mentioned.
Meaning?
I mean, it can calculate all those simultaneous risk factors compared to the human brain. And it can do it in numbers which are, I don't know, is it terabytes? What's the next? I don't even know. Very big numbers. So, and AI, it's a reality already. For example, we are doing a project now, it's called Incisive, and we are applying artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithm calculations into cancer imaging. So basically what do? We develop an AI toolbox in order to be able to get, the regular screening outputs, such as a CT or a mammography, and it enhances.
Do you have 100% accuracy on the detection of cancer?
There is no screening.
AI will do that, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, our study is still in the testing process, so I cannot claim that. I don't think.
Do you see any progress with that?
Of course, and
is it more accurate than a human perception or not yet?
Well, even if it's as good as the human user, that's a win for us. Because a human user, don't forget that it can be tired, it can be overwhelmed, it can be trying to diagnose after seeing 40 patients on the
He
clinic.
needs to pee, he needs to go to
So it's a human being. All those factors can affect its performance, but AI performance cannot be affected by those. So that's why I said, even if it's as good as a human user, it's a win.
Wow, yes. Definitely, I think AI with detecting diseases, it will be one of the biggest, fastest.
Like I said, it's already here.
But there is so much more that it can do, but this is such a low-hanging fruit for AI because it's basically interpreting data.
Basically, yes.
So, and the AI is very good at interpreting.
It is.
Very, very good.
But you have to bear in mind, Phidias, that the AI is as good as the orders we receive from the human AI.
Depends.
Well, it's debatable, but I can also tell you one more thing that the EU Beating Cancer Plan managed to do in that context. It created the Federated European Cancer Imaging Initiative. So, for example, cancer centers from around Europe can contribute their screening outputs to that repository. And that repository data can be available to researchers to address AI applications into making them better. So that's why I said that I am positive that AI is here to stay and will become much better than it is today. And in the same context of the EU Beating Cancer Plan, there is also the European Health Database, data space, where also cancer centers from around Europe can contribute data in relation to the control of cancer. And those data will be under the GDPR law, so it will protect where those data is coming from. So it's potentially we can, in the near future, we'll be able to do massive studies with a global and European impact.
So I'm curious to hear a bit more details on. So basically, a screening means that I have what samples of the blood, because I don't understand. It's like scan of the brain. Like what is?
Well, let's take for example, a mammography is taking slices of the breast in specific positions, and it reconstructs the breast on a computer. The computer reconstructs the breast, and you can see whether you can have solid areas in the breast which might be cancerous. And then,
Wow.
if you identify those, then you can have a fine needle aspiration or a breast biopsy, and then you have 100%. That's 100% diagnosis whether this is a cancer or not. And this can go the other way around, actually.
Meaning?
I mean, in some cases, you can have the fine needle aspiration first, or the breast biopsy, and then you have a mammography to complement that diagnosis process.
I'm going crazy now because I'm thinking all these possibilities. Like, so let's say if we have watches in the future that measure all the time our blood pressure, how whenever you sleep, eat, everything, and they know everything about your behaviors, what you ate, and they will be able, and if they have all the data from 8 billion people that they wear those watches, they will be able to immediately detect if you have cancer, if you have anything, because they will cross correct and will say, oh, you have this in your this, and because you understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand your line of thinking. I'm not sure that they would be able to say that you have cancer, but they would most probably be able to say that you are
There is something
working towards getting cancer. So it's all about probabilities. That's how.
Yes. So, and we'll tell you go and do screening because
You are becoming a high risk person.
Wow. So, it seems that this healthcare stuff, it's very optimistic with the new technology that will solve a lot of these big problems that we were facing the last 100 years.
Of course.
And it's like I see tackling these big problems definitely in the next 10 years and solving big time a lot of things. So it's very exciting years coming next for your job.
It is. I have to be honest. It's exciting nowadays. I mean, we are using much of those technologies to the benefit of the patients. For example, we are using virtual reality in order to
have there
that's
a headset.
That's one of the headsets that you use. So
here it is.
So I mean, for example, we have used virtual environments in order to relieve the tension and the anxiety from the patients during receiving treatment. Because imagine a person that is sitting on a chair for, I don't know, for some kind of period, and all those ideas and thoughts passing through their minds, the anxiety, the depression, it hits red, really. And it doesn't take much. It only takes a virtual space where they can move around, and it just takes the minds out of the actual event.
And I watched a movie. I had a VR as well. And it's like, when you watch a movie, it's like even better experience than going to a theater. When you watch a movie in there, it's like you hear the whole, it's like immersed in the whole thing, and it's like, yes. So it's so cool, like, because the hospitals are kind of very depressing in a way. Like you go there, it's like all this chaos, people coming in and out, nurses, blood coming in and out, AV, all this stuff. So if you are able to kind of alleviate for an hour, 2-3 hours, like to have an escapism from the hospital, that's very interesting. So so you are exploring all these different stuff for the
this is one of the areas we are exploring it, and another area is when they are doing those screening or treatment. One of the let's say radiotherapy can be quite a challenge for the patient. So nowadays we are exploring developing virtual spaces to help them virtually navigate the process before they actually do it in real life, and also help them during the actual process, because it can be quite distressing for the patient to experience that, and we want to introduce it there as well.
Sometimes you just, in this situation that is difficult and heavy on psychology and all this stuff, you just need an escapist to pass time. You just need to kill time. And it's like with this stuff, it can be actually a big solution for a hospital to have these virtual spaces to
absolutely. And we are also exploring augmented reality in doing different other stuff, in the sense that we want to apply it into an initial diagnosis for patients, and to help also healthcare.
Initial diagnosis, what do you mean? Augmented reality
for example, using your application, your camera of your phone, and pass it over a specific area of your body.
And it can detect exactly.
It cannot diagnose, but it can give you an initial diagnose and tell you that whether you need to get in touch with your healthcare professional or get immediately in touch with your healthcare.
That's very interesting.
It's actually a project that we have written a proposal for it, and we are waiting.
Wow, there's
funding.
so many exciting stuff, bro. There's so many cool things to do. There is millions of options. AI, augmented reality, VR to use to just help
Supportive care.
support the patient.
Yeah, because we shouldn't be forgetting the cancer journey is not 1 week. It's not 2 weeks. It's
sometimes years.
Sometimes it's forever, because some of the side effects, they never go away. And I will give you another example that we are doing. For example, xerostomia and mucositis. When you are receiving radioiodine treatment, which is radioactive iodine, it can destroy your salivary glands, and it can destroy them forever. There are new techniques that they are salivary sparing techniques, but some damage remains. And these people can live their lives without saliva. There are in the commerce some artificial saliva, but patients tend not to give it, to take it. They tend to fall out eventually. So what we are...
Fall out means?
Means that they give up. They don't want to use it. And we wrote a paper saying, is xerostomia the pace to pay? And you will be amazed on the tremendous impact that xerostomia can have on the patient. By the way, xerostomia is extremely dry mouth for our audience, because xerostomia is a Greek word. So they cannot speak properly, they cannot eat properly, they cannot go out with their friends and eat in a social environment properly. So we took a step back and said, how do we handle that? So we develop a spray, a product, which is based on natural ingredients. For example, honey, thyme. So it's all natural, and people use it when they are undergoing radiotherapy or chemoradiotherapy or radioiodine therapy. And we have tested it in practice, and it works. And now we are in the process of trying to commercialize the product in order to help much more patients have access to that. Because...
And when you commercialize a thing, you go by the EU, you go by government, you go by as an organization that you are to commercialize.
It depends. Usually, when you do that in university level, you go through spin-outs. So you create companies coming from the university, and the company takes care of that commercialization of the product.
This product with a spin-out.
It is in the process, yeah.
With a spin-out from a university, but not a university here, somewhere else in
Here.
Here.
We have developed the product here, but it has undergone this is actually the third randomized control trial that it's been running at the moment.
It's very difficult to get a drug into the market.
It can be, yeah. It goes under a specific process, but yeah. But this is not a drug.
Yes.
This is classified under the food supplement category because it doesn't have any active medicinal ingredient in it.
My mother is a nurse. She was a nurse here in Cyprus, and now she teaches nursing in the offices in Nicosia in the back. They have some... Anyway, so the point is that she's teaching nursing now. And through my life, now I came to understand, I think nursing is one of the highest service and that you can do in humanity. Because the patient is like, they're helpless. He needs help to take care of you, and you are just taking his shit, You are speaking with him. You are speaking on the mental level. And yes, I'm curious to hear. So a nurse is very important in the treatment of the patient, as I understand, right?
So I guess your mother is Irene, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I
I know her.
my mother.
Well, I think your mother knows me as well. Well, I couldn't agree more with you. Cancer nurses, but also nurses in general, they are an integral and a pivotal part of the health team. You cannot control or manage any kind of disease any place in the world without proper nursing, without nursing that extends to the full manifestation of the body, because nursing has that, it is integrated into the mentality of the nurse, that a person, it does not consist only of the body, is the mind, it's the spirit, it's everything, and nursing touches all those dimensions of the person. And I strongly believe that nursing makes a lot of difference in terms of humanity. And what can I say? COVID was one of the most recent examples. All healthcare professionals, but nurses especially.
But it's probably needs to be trained on a lot of interesting things. The nurse to be able to handle a patient that is dying from cancer, and to treat him well, to speak with him in the right way, to not. So it's but this is just, a nurse is one component out of all the 100 that we discussed. Preventing the thing, screen finding, is like so multidimensional.
All the
topic.
components are necessary in this chain of professions and disciplines, but we cannot exclude the fact that nursing is essential. And nursing is, by the way, what brings everybody else together. Especially when you are speaking about multidisciplinary, multi-professional, or interdisciplinary care, the nurse is the glue that brings everybody together.
Why you are doing what you are doing? Why you chose to do this?
Well, I am a cancer nurse by background. When I was training when I was in my initial steps in nursing, I was found intrigued by the world of cancer, the suffering that cancer can create to people, to families, to societies, because cancer is not a personal disease, it's a social disease. It affects every thread of society, including economics. So I was intrigued by it, and I had the idea in my mind that through my work, through my research, I could make a small difference. And in this journey, I think that every single difference, no matter how small or how big it is, at the end of the day, it can make the life of a patient better. And that, to me, it's everything. Even if I can change one person's life to the better, then I'm satisfied.
What do you want to leave behind in this world?
In terms of my work, I I think
Or
that,
maybe in terms of your kids, or it doesn't.
well, I think,
We talk a lot about the business, your profession. You didn't say anything aesthetically about your personal life, but you can touch on it if you want. But not your destiny, but what is one thing, if you could leave something behind, what do you want this to be?
well, you touch on the on the family side. I do believe that my highest success that I have done in my life was my 4 kids. 4, by the way. So, yeah, I do think that living that in the society, I mean, raising good people in the society, I think that's one of the most, to me, it's the highest value that you can contribute to society itself. Now, in terms of my work, I do hope that through my projects and through the work we leave behind, we help to control and manage the disease better. For example, I mentioned the spray, I mentioned the VR. Every outcome matters at the end of the day. It matters because it goes into guidelines, it goes into the things that set or influence the way cancer nursing or cancer care is practiced in the current and in the future.
And with that being said, thank you so much for your time. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
having me.
watching. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.